Is it running?
Yep.
Cool. Well, let's talk about periodization for like general fitness clients. Like, I know our bread and butter is like working with athletes. You like to, Mike, and that's like who we're attracting and drawing in a lot in here. But still, we still get our fair share of kind of general fitness people, whether it's aches and pains or I just want to lose some weight. And we're always thinking like, how can we periodize and set up an athlete's training program or treatment plans to get them back to the sport? But what if somebody's like very general? You know, like we try to drive them towards specific goals, but like I just want to feel better. I just want to lose some weight. Do we need to consider periodizing training plans or treatment plans for them? And most of the time the answer is going to be yes. Like we're going to use a bunch of keys and steps like you would in evaluation, we will in here, kind of help periodize that. And whether it's not as like strict as we would with an athlete, there still should be kind of baseline measures and steps that we go through. Is that better, Dan?
Yeah.
To get when we're doing this. So here's kind of our keys to success in here that we're looking at with our general fitness people. We want to go through our movement assessment. We're going to use a cardiovascular assessment. And then we're going to kind of understand some really basic periodization models. We're going to understand a linear model and a nonlinear, and then a concurrent and a more conjugate method. And then always understanding the SAD principle or specific adaptations to impose demands. What we're doing in here, how's that going to carry over to improvements in their body, to improvements in how they look or feel. It can go through their day-to-day or their recreational sports. And then really weighing the risk-reward. Like sometimes with athletes, we always want to go super low risk, but maybe you do take a little bit more risk with an athlete sometimes to get those performance benefits and sacrifice some stuff on the health spectrum. Like we've said before, Dan, like you want to perform really, really high, well, you're going to sacrifice and take some stuff out of your healthy bucket to get those gains and adaptations. But with a general fitness client, we probably want to keep that bucket as full as possible while still helping them reach their goals. So just kind of summing up the last slide and what we're looking at with our goals of their training program, we want to kind of put a few underlying principles in place. The first one, like we said, minimize the risk. Like injury prevention, doing no harm, always our goal. Improving joint health, which we use kind of our mobility training and teaching good movement in here, but sometimes it needs assistance from somebody like you, Mike, like a chiropractor, or maybe a PT, a massage therapist, somebody to help give them a little bit of a boost to move joints the way that they should independently. And then increasing the relative strength and then people's aerobic fitness levels. So in terms of our movement assessment in here, like Mike, what we'll go through usually is we'll look at some passive range on the table. We'll get up and look at some bigger movements and kind of piece that together. Okay, how's this joint move passively and in a more isolated situation? And then when we go and look at bigger global movements like squats and toe touches and lunges or shoulder flexion, how do those smaller pieces piece together? So does each joint do its job, and do those individual parts kind of move how they should when they're together? So there's always our goal number one with our adult clients, is make the joints work nicer, better, and improve their movement patterns. And sometimes, like we said, that needs assistance from other practitioners to get that. And then we have our cardiovascular assessment. And if you look at like research, like the only fitness quality, with strength and power and all the qualities that is linked to decreased morbidity is your aerobic fitness level, your VO2 max is what they'll look at. So that's an important thing to train with our general pop and our stress management people and getting people to feel better, is to improve that aerobic fitness, whether that's improving their work capacity, delaying the onset of fatigue, you carry over to those benefits of decreased pain, or this BDNF, this brain-derived neurotropic growth factor, improve mood, and then things that we'll use to measure that. Resting heart rate is really simple. Heart rate recovery we'll use, or like an anaerobic threshold test. Which when we do that, we'll usually do like the anaerobic threshold test, and then go right into the heart rate recovery. How long does it take you to come back down in a minute, or where are you at after that minute? And then the adaptations that we're looking at when we're training them cardiovascularly, and to improve that aerobic fitness, like the bigger left ventricle, better respiration, more capillaries, more mitochondria, more aerobic enzymes, all the things that we're looking for. And then there's just a couple of simple like goals that we'll look for. Do they have a resting under 60? Can they get the recovery down under 130? And we'll use it in a minute after we do one of those threshold tests, which usually is on the bike. It's just low impact and really easy to just have them go all out in like a safer manner early on. applications. This is when we're programming, like what we'll usually go through with clients. It's more of a cardiac output development day where we're keeping them low, like in a 120 to 150 beats per minute range. 30 to 90 minutes, but for this, it's like taking up a session. So instead of saying, like, let's just go steady on the bike, we'll put together circuits. Like simple, whether it's sled pushing, like ropes, med ball, something really simple, like low kind of movement standards, not super technical, just help them get their heart rate up. Tempo training we'll use sometimes, so in that situation, it's gonna be more like local benefits, something like going a slow pace, like 3 seconds down, 3 seconds up on a split squat, or a stop, or like a regular squat or a push-up. This high-intensity continuous training, we don't use that too much, Dan. I don't think we have really.
What's that?
Where you're gonna go like, you're working on like the endurance of more your fast twitch fibers. So do like an explosive step up, alternate sides, rest for like 10 seconds in between, or you do it on we don't have a spin bike here or like a sled, but we don't do that too much in here. Or just a regular strength training program, for the most part, for somebody who's untrained, is going to put them in that aerobic zone. Like I said, our goal number 2, get that resting heart rate below 60 beats a minute. So it's kind of okay. We got to make joints move nicely, and then help them improve cardiovascularly, and kind of set that foundation of a good aerobic system, which will help them recover and be able to do more and manage stress better in the gym. And then the next thing we'll talk about are just the periodization models. This is where we get into it. Like with athletes, we can really plan things out. Okay, we're gonna go through a phase where we're gonna work on building hypertrophy, and then their strength, and then their power, and like using sets and reps to play with that. With adults clients, like we don't need to look at things that detailed, but it's still good to be thoughtful and like aware of what you're doing. So if we lay out just the basic models, you have your linear, which is going from like a higher volume, low intensity period, and then into lower volume or higher volume, low intensity to a lower volume, high intensity period over the course of 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Or you have your nonlinear or undulating, where you're changing the training volume, whether it's weekly or it's monthly. And then we kind of draw a line into those two, and then you have your concurrent training, which is you're training multiple qualities in parallel together. Like in a session, you're doing speed work and power work and strength work, and maybe your aerobic work, or conjugate, where you're training multiple qualities at once in a program, but each one kind of builds on the next. So that's where, okay, we're just focusing on our strength for 1 month, and then we're going into more of a power phase. And for the most part in here, we're using concurrent training. We don't have anybody that's that trained or that high level where they need things to be that specifically driven to them. Like all of our athletes, all of our general fitness clients within a session are getting all those different fitness qualities. And maybe somebody has more of a focus on one than the other, but for the most part, everything is fitting in to one training session. So here's just an example of a linear periodized program. It just kind of shows the slow decrease in reps and increase in loads. This is like an example of like a 4-phase one. This is what a lot of our early on adult programs look like. And we may stop a lot of people at, maybe it's just right here. Like they're not ready to even handle load in month 3, this heavy. Or maybe we'll stop them right there after a phase 3.
It's important, even like with the linear periodization,
Yeah.
to know that just because someone went through 4 weeks of a 3x12 program doesn't mean that they're going to be ready for that next step, as opposed to someone who's been trained at some point or has just moved a little bit better, and they're able to start increasing the load. So we decrease the reps. So it's going to be, we make those adult training programs so that they build and progress. But at the same time, just because that thing says that they're doing 3x12, and then by week 4 it says 5x3, doesn't mean that everyone who comes in to do that group training class can do the 5x3. And that's where the semi-private stuff really is a little bit more benefit when it comes to that individualization, just because everyone is not going to respond to those stimulus the same way.
Exactly. Adult programs, we may, like I said, most people, they stay linear. We maybe have a couple adults that are trained enough, but we're going to start to kind of wave and change the volume. But we usually will go more to, I'd say, Dan, like changing the exercise variation somewhere within okay, 3x12, 3x8.
Before we start loading it.
Loading them even more. Like go from, okay, we're goblet squatting at 3x8, we're goblet squatting at 4x6, and then we're double kettlebell squatting.
Yeah.
And then maybe we're touching a front squat.
You're not going to see, all right, we're going to do our 1 rep max on the dumbbell goblet squat. Like, that's not going to happen.
Right.
That's the goblet squat is a tool to progress to something a little
we usually
more
change
advanced.
how we're loading those. That'll make sense?
Yep.
Cool. And here's just a chart kind of showing simply that the fluctuating or that change of intensity going up, volume going down with the more linear periodized program. And then here's your undulating, which is kind of for the more advanced training. But there's 2 different examples here. The top is what it may look like if you're undulating a program weekly, and the bottom would be a daily. So weekly would be like in the time frame of, let's say, a month or 6 weeks. Where week 1, sets and reps, let's say would be 2x15, to week 2, 3x8, and week 3, 5x5. Or if we did it on a daily, so within the week, it's each day is broken down with a lift with a little bit different intensity and volume. There's just a chart showing how that waves and fluctuates, this one in terms of week to week, and then in day to day with the 1, 2, and 3. But if you look at research, there's no big difference in terms of if you use a linear or if you use a wave program in an untrained population. Listen, they're just giving themselves a new stimulus, they're gonna get better. I mean, like with treatments, do you feel like that too? Like somebody's younger,
Yeah, absolutely.
or somebody they haven't been in pain for as long. Does that make sense?
Yes, exactly. And so the younger population definitely responds quicker too.
Yeah.
And so for the same injury versus a high schooler versus middle age,
Right.
young kids are bouncing right back. Less stress built up over long term, less adaptation in the muscles and the tendons.
Yes.
So it's easier to stabilize and fix as opposed to middle age where the stress has been there for 10 years.
10 years. Those bad habits have been.
So like I said, older patients are more like an onion. They have layers to the injury. And so for the older population, it's maybe a month or 2 of treatment of peeling back the layers and then finding the core root, whereas the younger the kids, I can see that core thing right there, day one.
Right, there it is. I know I got to go at this and treat it, and they're going to get better. Yeah, and that's kind of like similar to in here in terms of, okay, somebody we got a freshman 8th grader in yesterday, never trained before, athletic kid. She's like, it's a gold mine, it's an empty canvas. Here's a bunch of what we can do. Where you get your middle age who's been in some pain.
I'm taking the high school track athlete. She's a freshman now, and she's setting record times, but she's completely untrained.
Right.
So now I'm modifying her gait, I'm modifying this, her biomechanics, and her times it's improving exponentially now.
Right.
And so, like I said, untapped.
Yeah, exactly.
Just tweak little things here and there.
Yeah.
Becomes collegiate in no time.
All the way.
Right.
And it's I think look, the trained population is going to see bigger strength gains with that undulating model, just varying the stimulus.
Yeah.
And it's like the same we talked about the concurrent versus the knob. Like most novice and intermediate, you could throw the kitchen sink at them and they'll adapt and be good. Where the more trained you get, whether you're a power lifter and you're stronger now, or you're a field athlete and you're more powerful and explosive, or a sprinter is probably a better example. Now you probably need all your stimulus to go in maybe one more specific bucket, and everything else has to be towards recovering from that one stimulus. Where like the novice intermediate can handle more, the intensity isn't as high with the kind of different stimuluses that you're giving them. And then too, for the most part with our adult clients and even our athletes, like it's always keep it simple. The linear model will work, but up to a point. Eventually you got to choose. Okay, people are going to plateau, or even with adult fitness clients, they're going to get bored at some point, and it's almost like trying to catch that early.
Yeah.
Like okay, finally I'm fed up of getting just breasted on this area. Like okay, I got to change the stimulus because of that. And same with training. Okay, I've been trap barring for 3 months. Trap bar was fun, but now
What's next?
it's not right. It's not so fun anymore. So it's reading them psychologically, and then weighing your risk reward. Like with everybody, when is eventually strong enough? Like we want our athletes to be good at their sport. We want them to be good lifters, but not want to be good at their sport, not a phenomenal power lifter. And same with your adult fitness clients. I feel like it's tough in this field because that's what most of us did.
Yeah.
We played a sport, we were okay at it, we got into lifting, we got into powerlifting.
Yeah.
It's like that's not the path for
Yeah,
everybody.
exactly.
Yeah. Like, I mean, obviously someone like you or I is going to lift different than,
Right.
Nancy, who's coming off the street and just wants to move and feel better.
Yes.
And the passion for the types of lifting is going to be different too. You know,
Right.
she doesn't want to come in here and hit a deadlift double on Fridays because it's Friday. You
Right.
know, like she doesn't want to come in, feel good after she leaves,
Yeah.
and not feel like she's going to die tomorrow.
Right. Yeah.
I think, like I said, reading clients' patients is their expectations. Finding that up front.
Yeah.
Because I have patients who think they want to get better in a week, and
Right.
just taming that expectation. It's like, no, this is going to take
Mhm.
a couple weeks, months
Right.
to get better.
Right.
And so knowing goals right off the bat, that definitely
Yeah.
helps with the psyche of
It's huge.
everyone.
Do you run into people with like past histories, like who have been treated by maybe it's a chiro or a physical therapist or somebody before, and were unsuccessful with like a certain treatment modality,
Absolutely.
and that maybe is something that you do? And you're
Yes, and so I almost like when patients come from other healthcare professionals.
Yeah.
One, because they factor out a bunch of stuff that I don't need to do anymore.
Right.
But now I can change their expectations of everything, because maybe they go to the stereotypical old school chiropractor who just adjust.
Right.
And they're like, oh, I'm really hesitant seeing another chiropractor because I want to run to that guy. I'm like, well, perfect, because I'm not doing that.
Right.
You already ruled something out. I know just the adjustments isn't for you, so now
Uh-huh.
we're going to try this, this, and this. And I
Right.
usually tell patients right up front, I go, if you're not better within a couple weeks or feel a little bit of improvement, we
Uh-huh.
got to change the game plan. I'm not going to beat a dead horse and just adjust every single time.
Right.
If this doesn't work, we'll try this exercise, we'll try this. If not, I'll send you this route to someone.
Yes.
It's never going to be, let's do this until it doesn't work, and we get cut off
Okay,
and we're
right.
done.
Exactly.
And so I think that's another big thing. Definitely see from other chiropractors and other PTs, just they do the same thing over and over and over
Yeah.
again, and no one ever changes.
Yeah.
And so that's why I like, from my end of things, is I'll take the best of all worlds. I'll take the best from the PT, the best from the chiropractor, the best from trainers, and
Mhm.
try to instill it into one big treatment there.
Yeah.
And so they get the best of both worlds. But yeah, no, I definitely run into very hesitant phone calls, first
Mhm.
visits of, I don't really want to do this because
Right.
I already spent a month, 2 months,
Doing
a
this.
year doing chiropractic treatment. And my
And
first
so-
thing is, why did you do that?
Right.
So I like to educate in the beginning.
That's huge.
Just tell them, hey, this is what you have. This is what it's going to take to fix it.
Yep.
A lot of chiropractors, PTs, they're like, oh, you have this low back pain? Well, let's treat it 3 times a week and see if it gets better.
Right.
And so they don't have that goal at the end. They're like, well,
Yes.
I don't know how long it's going to take. I tell them, 3 months. Give me 3 months and I got you.
Yeah.
And if it takes any longer, shorter, we'll adapt as we get there.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I mean, we talk this much about
Mhm.
expectations, and education is huge up front. So you kind of lay out the game plan or the
Yeah.
map, or kind of answer, okay, this is why we're doing
Yeah.
specific things. Yes, we just did goblet squats for maybe 8 weeks, but let's go back to our goal, of your,
And I've had people actually thank me day one saying, now I know what's going on. As
Right.
previous healthcare professionals were like, we had no idea what the game plan was.
yeah,
And I just kept going to treatment just because another doctor told me to, or I thought this is what my prescription said.
right,
And so I'm like, no, this is what we're going to do. It's going to take this is treatment. This is what we're going to do at home, homework here.
Yeah.
And so they have that game plan, that
That's
roadmap.
huge. I think putting things in context is huge, because with athletes, their context is their sport.
Mhm.
They're there to
Right.
see us
Yep.
or you to be better at their sport. You know it, they know it. Everything's like driven with that end goal in mind. And with like general fitness clients, you may need to, I feel like you gotta just kind of create that vision more, put everything in a better context.
Yeah.
Better context for them. But still we have, where's that right now? Yeah, and a concurrent model, which as we talked before, is often best, combining all the different qualities together. And I feel like when you go with a general fitness client, a linear and a concurrent, it's usually best to, or at least we've seen here, for improving their movement patterns, perfecting skills, and then gradually loading things versus giving them maybe a wave of different sets and reps, and it becomes harder for them to kind of perfect the movements and whatever movement skills you're trying to teach them while safely gradually loading them. Like that's where I feel like some people get into trouble, or they get lost in these big boot camp types of classes, because everything is changing so much so often. It happens at such a fast pace that they can never master these lifts.
I find, and I've seen this in my time in that setting and other settings, is you know, they'll have it's a timed setting, a timed amount, you know, it's some type of interval.
Yep.
And you know, at the beginning they're like, all right, you're gonna do a kettlebell deadlift, but they spend the first 20 seconds, that 30 seconds trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And then by the time that 10 seconds is up, they've done 3 good reps.
Right.
And they haven't had a chance to really learn the movement.
When you run into that with the person who's like methodical, and you run into the other end when somebody's not, I just want to do work. They do work in these god awful positions and techniques.
Yep.
It's like both of those people get.
That's the biggest boot
lost.
camp patients that I get. It's all something for like a deadlift or a kettlebell swing. We were at the end and I was just burning out kettlebell swings. I'm like, have they showed you how to do a kettlebell swing? Like, there's trainers that are watching.
Right.
And will show me really quick.
And you're
and I'm
probably
like, that's not anywhere close to what it should be.
Yeah.
Definitely run into that a lot.
Yeah, that's huge. I think that's like that's where Dan does an awesome job with like the group classes, like in our MatCon, which is like more boot camp style, but the exercise selection becomes so important.
Yep.
Like we said, like what are the ones where like they're not technical, you don't have to think, just go and do your work, and you're gonna be low risk.
And I think one of the things that we do well with our MatCon is we take the time at the beginning to make sure that people are doing it right before they just go.
Right before we go. Okay,
you know, it's not like, all right, we're doing kettlebell deadlifts. This is what it looks like.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
You know.
And I'd rather have that where you kind of not master, but know your skill. So I'd rather you take time away from the workout. And perfect that than just say, hey, show you once, go do it. Let's see how it turns out.
Right. We always, and you know, we try and leave enough time in there to do that. When we go through our boot camps. And like Mike said, like a lot of the exercises we choose in the boot camps are boot camps, MatCons are simple. And especially now, even more so now, I think, than when we started. So we find, you know, we let them get a little higher volume of those exercises and doing them right. They're gonna get more benefit out of that than, and then this kind of goes back to our, you know, training models is they're gonna get more benefit out of hitting 12 good reps, you know, than trying to go heavier and hit 5 mediocre at best reps. You know, and they come back and they're like, I know I feel those where I'm supposed to feel them, not in my low back or not in my neck and things like that.
I think like and this kind of, I think it all comes back to like periodizing for adults is all about staying healthy, so you can train more and keep feeling good. Like athletes, you're periodizing to improve, you know, these skills or performance measures, and really realistically you have them in the weight room for 3 months, maybe 4 months, and then they're out, and maybe you get them in one time a week for an in-season. But adults, you're like continually giving them these stressors in here, anywhere from 2 to maybe 4 times a week.
And I always say too, some of our clients, like, oh, I was sore, but like not bad. I said, good. I said, we don't want you to be so sore after you come here that you're debilitated, because then you can't work out the next day or the next day, and then all of a sudden you're behind again. And then how do you think you're going to feel after that next workout? It's going to be the same. So we you know, the goal isn't to push people so that they can't walk the next day. Maybe after the first one they're a little more sore than they would normally be, but that just goes right back to they haven't done it. They're detrained. You know, and making sure that they understand that the goal is not to just be sore all the time.
It's to slowly build on building kind of each workout and movement. So it's kind of like we're running into this right now with high school athletes. Testing. It's like you can't avoid it, I suppose. I mean, there's only so much you can do. Okay, let's go in school and we're going to preseason test our 1 rep max. The kids who have never done this lift or exercise before, or even close to that intensity. It's crazier too, because we're running into it with, this will be online somewhere, 1 rep max, and the schools will give them a specific weight. This is the weight you got to hit. Go, do it. And they put the kids under the bar. It's crazy. So with athletes, like, listen, you're going to run into that as a measure, and you train them the best you can to be prepared and handle it. Then there's adult clients, like, there's really never a time or a place to unless they're getting into the sport of powerlifting, to put them under a real 1 rep max. But you still want to have like some basic strength standards for them. So like when you're doing that, I wouldn't think of it as a 1 rep max. It's still like you weigh the risk and reward. Like kind of think how strong, or are they strong enough to me to progress them to the next variation of the exercise? Are they strong enough in their goblet squat to go to a kettlebell squat or a front squat? Like can they keep their upper back in a good enough position during the lift? So like I'll usually think of in my head, I forget where I read this from, but maybe a Dan John, but at least God will hold 50% of the body weight for 10 reps, whether it's a goblet squat or a split squat. Just be able to handle that load, and then you're probably safe enough to keep good position and maybe an offset dumbbell load, maybe a 2 dumbbell load type of position. Is that with adults too? I think the variation is so big. Like some people, like I think you have a handful of people adults in here that will probably never get to a front squat.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But
I mean,
you could think of a bunch.
I can think of quite a few, yeah.
But like that's just fine. They'll
There's nothing wrong
be
with
strong
that.
enough to do their life and feel good, and so it's just kind of weighing those things. So you still got to lift heavy to get strong, but the progression will be more in the exercise variation than continuing to progressively load, just weighing that risk and reward. Number 3, we said 1, joint health. 2, okay, your aerobic system in terms of being able to recover, being able to be more, shift to more parasympathetic nervous system in your life instead of this crazy fight or flight. Like if we have a patient of yours or from another PT who's just crazy stressed with work and then goes and trains like a madman or madwoman and then has these aches and pains, just this continual, drives in traffic, this continual fight or flight, like we can train, but maybe we do so in more of an aerobic sense and try to push you a little bit more parasympathetic and aerobic to help manage your pain and still be able to train and work out and still be able to get strong. This is from Boyle's place out in Boston. I saw somebody post, but I think it's really good. You could probably write this out with any exercise, but in terms of somebody's goals, progressing, like here's just a squat as an example, like starting with an assisted squat to a squat with a pulse to a goblet squat, then at some point you branch out, okay, you want an Olympic lift, front squat, that'll lead you to your hang clean. Are you a strength sport athlete or a field sport athlete? Okay, then we'll just progressively load you through the kettlebells to the front squat to maybe a safety bar or a back squat. Or this middle is what we've been talking about all morning, your general pop client. Okay, what can we do to give them a different stimulus physically and mentally so they don't get bored? Okay, and there's a ton we can do, whether it's varying the tempo or the implement or the timing, which is tempo eccentrically or hold. So going through that in terms of progressions instead of staying down this continual add more weight as you go through. So then you could probably take, you could take the bench press right there. You could start as simple as like a floor press or a push-up and just kind of work your way down depending on the athlete or the person's goals or injury history. You could add injuries in there and just branch out laterally even more in terms of variations that you're going to do. And then back to that set principle, just thinking whatever you're doing in your training, all the way through from treatment to warm-ups to your training, your conditioning, just exactly what stimulus you're giving somebody, kind of what adaptations that's putting on their body, whether it's their mobility or when you're cueing them to improve movement quality or just their strength training and their conditioning. And then here's a big thing, Dan, that I feel like you do a really good job of, like during sessions. So you never want to baby people. Like, listen, you're going to come in here, you're going to work, you're going to sweat, you're going to be uncomfortable, but be able to get a good gauge of where they're at. Listen, we're not an MLS team or a soccer. We can't monitor somebody's heart rate variability and their heart rate every morning and their nutrition and their hours of sleep. Like, it's just not, it's not realistic. So, like, just what are little things you can do during a session? It's like, okay, like, we're still going to work hard, but let me just gauge where you're at right now. And, like, could be as simple as, like, how you feeling? Watch how somebody's moving. How's your nutrition been? Like, we'll have on our sheets, people write down their nutrition goals. Hey, did you hit this the last 2 days, the last 3? And we start to get a snapshot of what their focus has been on a nutritional standpoint. And then the RPE scale, we'll use a ton instead of percentages. Like, what's your rate of perceived exertion? 10 out of 10, dropping right down. We use it to kind of build up what's your working sets a lot of the time. Like if you're a 7 or higher, it's a working set. If not, it's probably too easy for the day. But I feel like that allows you to adjust day to day and teach people, like especially adult clients, like if you don't have it today, that's okay. We're still going to train. You're still.
I like that better than percentages, because I used to go off percentages.
Yeah.
And one day was 75, the other day was 85,
Right.
and then 85 just felt
Heavy.
Yeah, it was way too hard, and I couldn't get through it.
Right.
And then going down to the RPE,
which is real life, because you just hit. I just hit a 7 out of 10 RPE on my safety squat today. It was at 225, felt like a 7 out of 10. That's fine. I worked my 7 out of 10 for the day, even though maybe 2 weeks ago 225 was 5.
Yeah.
But that's fine. That was what I was working at today. That's what my body felt, and so then you get a good gauge too of just kind of getting a feel for how you feel and how your body feels under certain loads.
I feel like the RPE takes in other variables, nutrition, sleep, everything, whereas percentage
all of
doesn't
that.
care. Just do your work.
Do your work.
Your muscles don't know what your 1 rep max is. They don't know what your 90% is. They don't know what your 70%.
Yeah.
Your muscles know how they feel and how that specific load affects them in that moment.
Yeah, that and your nervous system.
In your nervous system. So like you said, those things, your nutrition, your sleep. Did you work in a car for 5 hours yesterday?
Right.
Did you have drinks over the weekend? Like all those things are going to play into that RPE.
Yes.
Whereas if you're saying that 225 is your 90%,
right,
that's just it. There's no wiggle room. Whereas if we go by the RPE scale,
right. And this with adults has worked really well. Like sometimes a high schooler, like some work really hard, and this can get put into play. Some you just got to teach them to work hard, and like listen, it's always good technique, but sometimes you're okay, like let's work up. You hit this at least last time, like we can get it again today. You're a little tired, that's fine. But adults, when you have all these other stressors, in their life, like this tends to be helpful to them. Once people get it, they appreciate it, and it's kind of like self-monitoring too, especially in like what's mostly our semi-private setting, where listen, for the most part, after your first week or two, we don't always have eyes on you. So if you can learn to self-regulate a little bit better, it'll just keep you healthier and safer, and learn to really train yourself. But in the end, like consistent training, consistent treatments will lead to happier people, better clients, stronger clients, and like in the end, better business and more money. In the end, the more you can keep people healthy and coming back into see you. Yeah, man. So that wraps that up. Any questions or thoughts?
So like go back a few slides, like the SED principle, that
Right
one.
there.
So I think where like I fit in is I'm very good at mobility and movement quality, whereas under that line I can't do that.
Right.
And so that's where someone like the PT or you guys come right in for me.
Definitely.
And so that's my limitations.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Be able to.
Because like you said, you do your movement screen.
Right.
And I was just thinking, like, have someone on the table and like you're doing like a hip internal rotation. You're like, oh, it's really pinching there.
Boom.
And like maybe you're limited with that, and I can
Yes.
go in, I can adjust the joint, I can stretch,
Huge.
I can do all that stuff,
To get
and then
them
get them
moving.
right back into action
Yeah,
again.
and then it's gonna get them moving along this a lot faster. Yeah, because we're
So
gonna.
I think we can all do everything. It's just I specialize more in the top stuff.
Yes.
You guys obviously have the strength and conditioning,
Yes.
and then obviously PT is right there with everything.
all the way. I think it's it's knowing that's huge.
and for the clients themselves, being able to integrate between a chiropractor, a PT, strength coaches, any other practitioners that they work with, to give them the best, the best treatment that they need.
Because a lot of patients ask me like, why am I going to go see a PT, strength and conditioning, and chiropractic at the same time? They're like, it's the same stuff. I go, well, we specialize in slightly different areas, and things are going to overlap. Like, I'm going to give you the same stability that your PT might, but PT might go more global than I can.
Yes.
Whereas you guys can hit the very global and specific stuff.
Definitely. But it's
I work-
integrating is
like
huge.
because of the ART certificate, I have that mobility that I can do with the adjustments, where PT might do more strength mobility and lack the joint manipulation that I do. And so, not saying that PT can't, because I know they do. It's just that's my area of expertise right there.
all the
And
way.
so I don't say I do PT work or rehab, because I'm not qualified for that.
Right.
I can do little stability stuff here and there to stabilize the joints I'm working on, but that's where my limitations go.
Yeah, I think it's huge, being able to know where you fit in, and like what's going to get somebody, whatever their end goal is, moving there as fast as
The
possible.
team approach to get things done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Team approach, yeah.
Yeah, is so huge. Yeah. Anything else, guys? Cool. Sweet. Yeah. Thanks. Appreciate it.